Hello, friends. This is another episode of the program Empire of Lies, in which we discuss manipulation and disinformation in the Russian media. Europe in the line of fire, Trump's rhetoric and the continent's reality, Donald Trump's statements about the possible restoration of Ukraine's borders with European support sounded impressive. The White House immediately called them a strategic step toward negotiations. But in reality, this is a rhetorical move, not a political one. Washington is demonstratively changing its tone without changing its essence. The US is increasingly distancing itself from the war, transferring its burden to Europe. This is a new twist on the old pattern. America trades arms and rhetoric, while European capitals must pay for the consequences, from inflation and energy shocks to new waves of migration. What Washington is selling? Behind the facade of grandiose rhetoric lies pragmatism. Yesterday's slogans about compromise have been replaced by promises of a triumphant offensive. But the essence is the same. Responsibility for the outcome of the war is being shifted to Kyiv and Brussels. Washington isn't abandoning its rhetoric of support, but it's leaving key restrictions in place. American missiles deep inside Russia are still banned. No more funding is being allocated. Meanwhile, the demands on Europe are becoming increasingly harsh. Increase military spending, buy weapons, close the Russian gas supply. In other words, the US is taking on the role of the show's high-profile director, but the Europeans must pay for the props and tickets. Moscow and Kyiv, two different signals. Moscow calls America a paper tiger and responds with the image of a real bear. Russian rhetoric emphasizes strength and steadfastness. Without addressing the root causes, there will be no concessions. For the Kremlin, the US's new tone is not a signal for peace, but an opportunity to test the depth of Europe's pockets and the reliability of Kyiv's alliance with Brussels. For Kyiv, the message is even harsher. Prove your ability to win, but at the cost of your own resources. Ukraine is expected to attack, without guarantees of accelerated supplies or an expansion of the permitted strike geography. In other words, victory must be won now, and the price will be ours. Europe between fatigue and responsibility. European societies are tired of constant news of war, of high electricity bills, of endless summits. It is precisely this fatigue that is being attacked. Russian propaganda exports three emotions: hatred, fatigue, and inevitability. American policy adds a fourth: bargaining. We'll provide the words and weapons, and you bear the costs. Europe risks ending up as a cashier without a voice. And if this trend is not stopped, Brussels will be held responsible for political failures, economic costs, and moral fatigue. Things get even more interesting. The White House reports that Trump's remarks about Zelensky being able to restore Ukraine's borders are a strategic move. This represents an intensification of negotiations, but not a serious change in US policy. The New York Post reports this, citing an official close to the Trump administration. The Wall Street Journal deciphers the thesis. Washington allegedly revoked Ukrainian permission to launch American missile strikes and attacks deep into Russian territory. CNN writes that with his aggressive rhetoric toward Moscow, Trump has merely replaced one completely impossible demand of Zelensky with another. And now, instead of territorial concessions, Washington expects Kyiv to launch a triumphant offensive. Not even believing American propaganda, the adventure will succeed. If the well-prepared so-called counteroffensive in the USSR in 2023 failed, then there's even less chance of it happening now. What needs to be done? A way out of this trap is possible. It requires sober calculation and honest policies. Short-term goals with clear results. Every decision should have a measurable effect within a few weeks. Localization of resources. Any assistance to Ukraine must simultaneously strengthen European industry, jobs, technology, and weapons compatibility. Strict sanctions enforcement, not just rhetoric, but a real fight against circumvention schemes. Direct communication with society. Citizens must see not only the cost of support, but also its benefits: energy sustainability, reduced risks for businesses, and strengthened defense. Europe must speak honestly to the people. Support for Ukraine is expensive, but its absence will cost many times more in the form of unstable borders, new wars, and a destroyed security system. You've been on the Empire of Lies program. See you soon.